Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quail Hollow. We thank them for hosting us today. Welcome to our first fire station stakeholder meetings. It's great to see such a great large group of people attend tonight that are working with the board on collaborating and providing input on a very essential project for our township, which is the responsible and productive planning for fire stations for the future of Concord Township. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Carl Dondorfer, Chairman of the Board of Trustees. I have Amy Lucci here and Morgan McIntosh, who are also trustee members. During this first meeting, we thought it was very important and imperative to solicit as much feedback and information from the community to help us get this project back off the ground. This project was initially started back in 2016 by the previous Board of Trustees. There was some planning and development done, some work with an architect that we're going to introduce here shortly. And after the new board took over, we reinvested ourselves into the project and are looking to solicit as much information and input and to work collectively with the community to move this important project forward. We know that our fire stations are over 50 years old. We know that it's imperative to provide safe environments for our first responders to work in, especially during these difficult times. We also know that it's important to provide safety services to our residents and excellent safety services. And it's also important to plan for the future growth of Concord Township. And with that, we're excited to start this first stakeholder meetings and engage the public for input and information that will help us move this plan forward. With that, we're not going to speak too much tonight. We are going to open it up after some brief introductions and some summaries to the public and listen to you all tonight. We want everybody to be able to participate, so our comments will be brief. As far as the ground rules tonight, like I said, there'll be some brief introductions, but what I'd like to do, because we are not only have people inside the building here today, but we also have people that are on virtually with us. We want everybody to be able to participate in tonight's stakeholder meeting and have their input. I would ask that I will hold comments or questions to about 3 minutes. We are not going to really answer too many questions tonight unless one of us feels passionate about it and wants to answer it at that time. We're going to take the information back and digest it. And this is, like I said, the first of many meetings we plan on having collectively together with the community. So we want everybody to be able to participate. So if you hear your question being asked by somebody else, I would ask that you refrain from asking a question, or if you have another one, feel free to ask. We're going to start with people in the audience and then provide our virtual people that are attending in that capacity to ask questions also. Before I turn it over to the other trustees for some initial comments, I would like to welcome from LeMay Erickson. They are the architects from Chicago. We have Christopher Cady and Katie Atwater from LeMay Erickson. When this project was initially explored, LeMay Erickson was retained back in 2018. We have a considerable amount of time and money invested with LeMay, so we are working with them and invited them out to sort of give you a summary of where we are at. We have done nothing from the existing plans that were in effect when the prior board was here. We have had no new plans drawn up. The plans that remain are the ones that were last provided on our website. So we are kicking this from the ground off here with initial input and feedback from you all. With that, the agenda tonight, we are going to start with a review of our township finances so everybody can understand that by our township administrator. We're going to have a fire department review briefly by our chief and an architect review by LeMay Erickson before we open it up for public input. So again, thank you everyone for being here and making a commitment to help your community and to push this fire station project, which is very important, forward. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Lucci.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, those that are virtually with us and those in person. We really appreciate your time. I do want to, again, state that the purpose of this meeting is to have a platform for us to share our concerns, our expectations, inform each other, educate each other on this fire station plan. With that, I think it is really important to remember that this is more than just about a design plan. It's more than just about the response time and the square footage. Concord is a unique place. We have many needs that we must think about incorporating into a design that will last us 50 to 75 years. A fire station is the community's symbol of trust, of pride, and I definitely appreciate the enormous amount of pride I feel when I speak with Chief Zabel, when I speak with DC Terriaco. I know we have great history here of fire chiefs from Concord, so thank you. And I just want everybody to kind of sense that pride. I think it's my duty, it's our duty to support our firefighters, our first responders, to enable them to do the best job they can in the most responsible way possible. And I know you all feel that way and share those ideas as well. So again, thank you, and please feel free to reach out even after the meeting. Thank you.
Well, after all that, I don't know what I have to say, but I do want to, extend my welcome to everybody that's here live and in person, and as well as our people joining us virtually. I'd like to thank LeMay Erickson for traveling on up and being here for that. And I'd like to underscore the fact that I echo the comments of my fellow trustees in that fact that we consider this a very important project. It's something that I was involved in or talked to a lot of people about last year during the campaign, and so I've had a lot of feedback from the community already. And from the minute the results of the election were known, I made it a priority in my time to start working on that. So I jumped into the details on this quite some time ago and have been working on it. I think it's great that we're finally at this point. I know we wanted to do these meetings much earlier, but obviously the events that we've all had to navigate here the last few months have put some of this on hold. So I'm excited to get going and dialogue about this and hear from the community. Like I said, last year when I was out campaigning and talking to folks, I understand there's a lot of questions, and I think it's reasonable to want answers to that. So it's and those that want to voice opinions and discuss it. So that's why we're here. And again, our plan is to have a couple of these meetings or a series of them that help the process move along. So thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Amy. With that, we're going to work right into this meeting. We're scheduled till 9 o'clock, so we're going to keep the comments brief before we get into the public portion. With a review of township finances, I'd like to call up our administrator, Mr. Andy Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Dondorfer, members of the board, Mrs. Dawson, members of the audience, virtual and live in person, good evening. I'm Andy Rose, I'm the township administrator. I just have a couple of slides. I just want to touch on a couple of things. I'll be very brief. Next slide, please. Here's our current tax revenues. Okay, we have general fund, road and bridge. Those are both inside millage. Fire protection, that's the operations levy that was voted on by the citizens. 2.7 mils was voted on. It's currently a 2.4 mil effective tax rate. Road levy, voted on by the citizens, 2.0 mils, 1.79 effective millage rate. And then our safety forces levy, which covers police and fire protection, voted on at 4 mils. Currently effective rate is 3.56, which means we get 10.75 mils. Next slide. Financing, it's real simple. The old plan, we were going to bond Station 1 with backing from the voters. That was the 0.83 mil bond levy that was placed on the November ballot. We were going to pay cash for Station 2, and the levy failed. That plan got tossed out the window. Current options for Station 1, bond the project using general obligation bond issuance without a levy. The other option is bond the project with voter backing, which would be a different bond levy. And there's an option out there to land lease the project, which is not very favorable, but to be fair, it is an option that's out there. And then the plan is to still pay cash for Station 2. Next slide. Thanks, Hannah. Couple of factors to consider when we're exploring our options, and I've had discussions with public finance folks. I've had discussions, long discussions with Mrs. Dawson, our fiscal officer, and I've had discussions with bond counsel. Without a specific bond levy, we pay a higher interest rate. That's just the nature of the market. Nothing we can do about that. A lot of folks have talked about JED dollars. We can certainly use JED dollars, but we cannot pledge JED dollars. We cannot put them up as collateral like you would a house or a savings account or something like that. You can't pledge. The JED agreement ends in 2028, which means in 8 years, we could lose the JED. I don't think that's going to happen. We'll have to renegotiate that contract with the city of Painesville. But the fact remains, the JED is currently set to expire in 2028. We can utilize JED funds to service the debt, but we cannot use it as collateral for the bond debt. There is no room in existing property tax revenue to finance this project. And we're on Ohio checkbook, Mrs. Dawson, right? So you can see all our expenditures and everything. You know, our inside millage, our fire operations levy, our safety services levy would be the 3 income tax revenues, or property tax revenues that we could utilize. The road levy doesn't count. That's strictly for roads and service department. I can't poach that over into the fire station. We can't. Finally, I'm sorry. Hang on one sec. Yes, I'm sorry.
You didn't turn the camera.
Got it. I'm sorry. I apologize. Two things at once. It's tough some days. Anyhow, there are no grants or assistance available from any outside sources to offset the building of the fire station, except one. There is one small one out there, and that's NOPEC. NOPEC grant money, because we are a NOPEC member community. We do get a rebate, and I think $60,000 is escrowed, and that can go towards energy efficient type items. It can't go for the construction, but it can go for energy efficient lighting. It can go towards better insulation. It can go for things like that. Energy efficient HVAC systems, but $60,000 is not going to build us a fire station. So that's where we are right now. We have not set a course of action on how we're going to finance this next station. So Hannah, if you could go back, I want to recap because the folks in the virtual audience did not get to see this slide. Again, we're not going to talk. The old plan's dead. Current options for Station 1. We can bond the project without going back to the voters. We can bond the project with voter backing, which is a bond levy. And while the option's out there, it's not a very practical or feasible option, which is to do a land lease, which means somebody else would own the fire station and we would lease it. And that's just not very favorable. And then cash for Station 2. That's what it boils down to. There is no possible way that I can see to pay cash for Station 1. I've heard that suggestion, and I just don't. It's just not practical or possible to pay cash for Station 1. Okay, that concludes my part, and I'll be here all night. Happy to chat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Okay, I'm going to bring up Chief Sable from our fire department to give a brief summary of where we've been and where we're at now. I would urge you all, if you didn't see on our website, there was just a virtual tour that was completed on our fire stations. It sort of gives you an overview of the operations, how they work at both stations. So I urge you all, if you're interested on getting an overview, it's very well done. And with that, summary of the fire department, Chief Sabo.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to see everyone tonight. I'm going to see if I can wedge this thing in here without breaking it. While I am a new resident of Concord Township, I have been a Concord firefighter since 1999 and have witnessed many changes in this community as well as fire department. When I became chief in 2016, one of my top priorities was to build on the work that had been done and improve the work and living environment for our firefighters. To provide some history, both existing fire stations were built in the mid-60s with an estimated lifespan of 50 years. The first fire truck responded from the basement of Town Hall with approximately 400 square feet. In the early 50s, a building was built behind Station 1 that was shared initially with the service department, and that consisted of 1,500 square feet, over 4 times the space of the Town Hall Bay. In the mid-60s, the existing Station 1 was built, but not exclusively as a fire station, but shared much of its space for a community room. This station is approximately 6,400 square feet, over 4 times that of the previous station, and again had an estimated lifespan of 50 years. Station 2 was not originally designed to be a staffed fire station. As a matter of fact, the first restroom was not installed in Station 2 until the mid-1980s, when the fire department installed a small living area inside of the station. We're at a point, as we all agree, that both stations are in need of replacement to meet emergency response needs of today and into the future. Neither station was designed or built for the level of service delivery that we see today. Today, Concord Fire has a roster of 41 line firefighters and officers. The daily staffing at Station 1 consists of the fire chief, deputy fire chief, administrative assistant, lieutenant, 4 firefighters, and 1 probationary firefighter. The new station also includes space for Fire Prevention Bureau, currently staffed with 1 full-time and 1 part-time inspector. Concord Fire is also a preceptor site for student paramedics from Auburn Career Center and university hospitals. The daily staffing of Station 2 consists of 3 firefighters, 1 lieutenant, and 1 probationary firefighter. After becoming chief, I took a close look at our existing facilities and the work that had been started several years ago by Fire Chief Mike Warner. This prompted me to ask myself, how do I move this organization into the 21st century in terms of service delivery for the next 50 to 75 years? At that time, I was completing my studies in the Ohio Fire Executive Program and had the opportunity to seek guidance from other executive officers from across Ohio. I met with former state fire marshal, along with the fire chief of Newark, Ohio, who had just opened a newly constructed station, both of whom offered a great deal of guidance in starting a project such as this. They both agreed that the best place to begin is with bringing in a third-party evaluator to perform a feasibility study of our facilities. The Board of Trustees, upon my recommendation, reached out to the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association to perform such a study. The Fire Chiefs' findings have been posted on our website since its acceptance in 2017. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, I had attended the Firehouse Magazine Station Design Conference. This provided me with the opportunity to network with fire chiefs and city administrators from all over the country. The knowledge gained from these conferences has proved beneficial for me as a chief, and as they demonstrated what a successful project looks like and failures to be aware of. Over the 3 years of attending the conference, there were similar themes to consider when designing a successful project. These included gender neutrality, building separation including decontamination, security, ADA requirements, training elements, and design from the inside out. These themes, along with our internal operations were used to develop the space requirements established by our internal stakeholders. Excuse me. By our internal stakeholders, our firefighters. Working with the architects, the program was established to provide our organization with the space needed for Concord Fire to be successful today and for decades to come. The station design plans are a result of the work put into this project by our staff for established space needs throughout the station based on both emergency and non-emergency activities. It has also been based upon both current and potential staffing levels. This plan had provided the fire department with the opportunity to bring all of our response equipment under one roof at each station for rapid deployment. Much of our daily operations are based upon best practice, Lake County Fire Chiefs, training, Ohio Department of Public Safety, Bureau of Workers' Compensation, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, National Fire Protection Association, and the International Organization for Standardization. Daily staffing is also driven by the amount of manpower required to simultaneously manage 2 critical care EMS events while continuing to have some level of coverage for fire engine response. Over the past 3 years, I have toured other fire stations to gain insight into their design challenges and successes. For the most part, it's obvious that their design has met their needs. But as fire chiefs, I think we all agree that the program of one fire station may not necessarily meet the needs of another. Many of these successful elements learned from conferences and station visits have been incorporated into our plan for Concord Township, including the addition of training elements, individual bunk rooms, additional restrooms and showers, locker room, and decontamination. Decontamination is a general term used to define the process to keep the living and business side of the station free from the hazards of our job. While I do feel that in the future there will be a need for a Station 3 for the south end of Concord Township, I struggle with the long-term funding to sustain this project. The addition of a fire station must take into consideration the cost of staffing, apparatus, equipment, furniture, and operational costs, which do not exist in our current funding models. Because Station 1 and 2 is a replacement project, the staffing, the equipment, the apparatus, and much of the furniture will be transferred to the new facilities. The engineers feel that due to the age and inefficiencies of our existing facilities, the operational costs should be modest when compared to updated mechanical systems and building features of the new facilities. While the new Station 2 will remain in its current location, the newest consideration for the construction of Station 1 is in terms of its location on the Town Hall campus. The original plan showed the site to be parking. The original site to be the parking lot adjacent to Town Hall. The township has just completed the installation of a second baseball field. Just last weekend, we saw both ball fields in use, which was fantastic to see. However, with just one ball field, the parking was a challenge. Building a fire station on that site would eliminate parking and access to the highly utilized ball fields. Consideration must also be given to the impact on other events such as Community Day, summer concert series, meetings, the pavilion and playground, as well as the day-to-day business activities of the township. From my perspective, the parking lot is not the most desirable location based on community impact. As an alternative, and to decrease impact on community events, consideration has been given to what the fire department feels is a more attractive site at the township soccer field. The cost difference between these two sites has yet to be fully evaluated, but certainly worth consideration. My focus since becoming chief of this department has been to address the challenges that exist today to provide for the safety, security, and welfare of our staff, our community, and ensure success into the future. So thank you for your time, and I want to introduce Christopher and Katie from LeMay Erickson and Wilcox in Virginia. Not to say you're wrong.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief got it in without breaking it. See if we can get it back out. Well, Chief's seen me at the conferences he mentioned, and Katie knows as well as anybody, I like to roam when I talk. So, I'm Christopher Cady with LeMay Erickson Wilcox. I'm one of the 4 principals with our firm. We've been practicing for over 30 years with a focus on public safety design. We've designed over 100 fire stations and public safety facilities. We take great pride in that work and serving those that serve others. And it's something that we specialize in. We speak in conferences, the one that Chief spoke to. In fact, Katie and I are scheduled to speak at 2 of those coming up this year as well. With a heavy focus on the decontamination, we'll talk a little bit about Hot Zone. Katie Atwater is our project manager. She works with me on almost exclusively on public safety projects in the office as one of our associates and is serving here as the project manager for the Concord project. Chief did a great job describing a lot of the key elements that we've incorporated into this. Great job listening at the conferences, Chief. Well done. These are critical things for creating a new current fire station that meets the standards and most importantly protects the health and safety and well-being of the firefighters, which ultimately turns back and provides impact for the response, health, safety, and their ability to do their job and save lives in our communities. Chief gave a kind of overview of the project in terms of kind of the program, what's included, how and why the new facility is needed. Our job as architects is to take that need, understand it, help refine it, and ultimately provide vision to it in the formation and creation of design and drawings that we can look at, talk about, make sure they're adequately meeting the needs of the department and the broader community. With that, take the next slide. A quick look, this is the site plan. You can see the existing ball field, or the current ball fields, existing town hall, and where the new building would locate with access to both roadways for response in either direction. Just to the top of the page, you can see the soccer field the Chief was talking about that may be considered as an alternative location. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Key components within the floor plan. We'll talk a little bit about each of those. Oh, look at that. Somebody got all fancy on me. We'll show a little blow up that goes into each of these components, but one of the key aspects in fire station design is considering how the adjacent spaces and program areas relate to one another, proper separation from security standpoint, as well as health and safety factors. We'll show a slide here in a moment about it speaks about the hot zone design that Chief was mentioning. Katie, you want to tell us a little bit, kind of break these down? This is operations space that includes the apparatus space.
Sure. So I guess just starting with when we look at a fire station, when most people see a fire station, the first thing you think about is the trucks. Where do the trucks park? What do the trucks do? The apparatus bay is the biggest volume in the space in the station. Also, back to the site plan, that is the first thing that needs to be located for apparatus response, apparatus return, which direction they need to go out, that kind of thing. So starting there, looking at how many bays do you need and how big do they need to be? And that's being driven specifically from the apparatus that the chief has. So we work specifically with the department to come up with a layout of their apparatus and determine how many bays and how deep they need to be to fit all the trucks and the other apparatus they need to be in there. Here we have 4 what we call double deep bays, which just means you can stack 2 units in one bay. So it kind of consolidates everything into one space. It gives you access from both the front and the rear. You can either go out either direction, depending on which vehicles you have, or if you have a longer piece of apparatus, it can park in that same singular bay and take up the whole length of it. We also have hot zone and decon spaces, which Christopher will get into in just a second in more detail, but that's the left side of the screen. There's gear lockers to store all of the turnout gear, as well as showers and lockers to decontaminate their person. So when they come back from a fire event, they can clean themselves before they go back into the living or sleeping spaces without taking the contaminants with them. Considerations for training. So there's a training tower in the upper right corner. That allows them to do training on site instead of having to go off site every time they need to train. That does 2 things. It allows them to train whenever they have free time. So if there's 6 people in the station and only 1 or 2 of them wants to practice something, they're able to do that on site without having to take a whole unit over to a training center that may be not in the township or in a different part of the township. It keeps them in the station while they're doing that training. And then operational storage. For any of those of you that have seen the video or that have been to Station 1, one of the first things that stuck out to me when we went to visit the first time was the lack of storage. There's stuff everywhere, and that's based on a station being built in the 60s that didn't have, when the department moved into that station, they didn't have all of that stuff. And now you have a breathable air compressor right inside of the bays. You have all of their gear storage right in that same room as well. So they're making do with what they have, but that's driving the increase in program in this area specifically. You can go to the next slide.
Katie touched on the hot zone design aspects, as did Chief. This is something that I'm very proud of. My partner, Paul Erickson, one of the founding members of the firm, helped bring this kind of as a design standard. It was kind of introduced it 5 years ago. This last year, it was actually adopted by NFPA. The National Fire Protection Association writes the design standards that we design buildings to. But they also specifically talk about fire and rescue practices. The applications of hot zone design take the terminology of incident response and hazardous material response and apply it to station design. What we realized years ago, 3 to 5 years ago, as really data points started to come in on the extreme increases of cancer rates in the fire and rescue community. Some of the statistics here, this is actually a little slide captured from the presentation Katie and I will give later this year at the FIRO and Fire Station Design Conferences. But it speaks to 2 times the greater risk of testicular cancer, 1.5 lymphoma, all these statistics that are just truly represent the exposure that fire and rescue personnel receive and are exposed to out in the field. What we've tried to do is apply the realities of zonal thinking within the station to allow places to come when they return and they've been exposed. We keep those areas. We identify a hot zone, the most exposed areas in the bays, provide a transitional space, that's the decontamination areas between, and then it keeps the house side where the administrative spaces, the living spaces, the bunks, green or cool. Ideally, those always stay clean. So we really want to compartmentalize where any contamination occurs. That lets Chief and his crew through operations manage that. You keep your mask on, you keep your gear on, you keep protected until your equipment, yourself, your body, your cab are clean and you're no longer exposed. It's been actually great to receive feedback, and it was really kind of the conversation began years ago relative to cancer rates. What we've received is amazing feedback over these last few months, and how the same applications have been extremely helpful for the fire and rescue community that have these design principles incorporated, and how they've been able to decontaminate relative to COVID. Same issues apply. They're coming back. They've potentially been exposed. They need to clean their equipment and, again, keep their house side and the rest of their crew safe, and ultimately their families safe when they return back from work. Oh, there we go. So it's a very brief. Don't want to go too long because, like we said, we want to get this back to the community input portion. Just a brief diagram of again, kind of the red represents those most exposed areas where the vehicles come back, personnel's been exposed, and providing the yellow areas as that decontamination transitional areas where there are showers provided, there's specialty cleaning opportunities for the gear that they wear at SCBA, and all the equipment can be cleaned, and it keeps the green side, the house side with the bunks, living spaces, admin, all clean and safe for the crew. Well, thank you. Okay, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about the admin and training areas?
Sure. So again, back to the programming exercises that we went through with Chief and the fire department, looking at the fire department administration. So this is a headquarters station. So not every station that we work with has this level of administrative components where the chief is there, the deputy chief has an office, there's an admin area. Fire prevention is moving over from Station 2 or the site next to Station 2 into this building. All of that is the orange area down at the bottom. There's a training room here for the fire department to use when they have department-wide trainings. There's some support spaces there. And then just kind of I guess the training room is designed also as a backup EOC. So in the event of an emergency, depending on the magnitude, a lot of jurisdictions like to have a separate emergency operations center. So that allows that room to be multifunctional, have the telecom and AV systems set up So if they need to go online as an emergency operations center, they're able to do that within the station without having to go to another location. Both of these spaces, in general, are replicating functions that are already at Station 1, with the exception of the fire prevention that's moving over from Station 2. In terms of larger spaces, there's some additional storage here that is moving over from offsite. But in general, it's really just kind of duplicating what's already there in this section of the building. Go to the next slide. Looking at the bunk and living areas, again, this area is one that has pretty significant change from the existing configuration. To Chief's point, a lot of the trends in the fire station design industry are going towards gender neutrality. Back in the day, it used to be one giant bunk room where everybody slept in there, and then it's separated into a male bunk room and a female bunk room in some cases. A lot of times it's a big male bunk room and there's not a lot of female firefighters, so they might have retrofitted an office and a bathroom into the female quarters. And now people are realizing that moving forward, it makes a lot of sense to just have individual bunk rooms and bathrooms that anybody can use. So it doesn't matter one shift to the next or 1 year to the next or 5 years from now or 10 years from now exactly how many females are on a shift. You have 6 bunk rooms and you're able to fit 6 firefighters regardless of what the gender breakdown is moving forward. And then the toilet facilities and locker facilities are all unisex as well. There's a shift officer's suite that has their office function as well as their bunk and a private toilet for them. We also size the kitchen day dining room per shift size, so that will grow and shrink from one station to another based on how many people are in that facility. Keeping that as one big great room allows for a lot of flexibility within that space, so it may be shown in this very, very light drawing that there's a dining room table and there's recliners in the day room. Whether that happens now and either 5 years from now it shifts around or they need overflow during a storm or something like that, they can use that space, shift the furniture around. It's one big room that they can configure differently for different purposes. And then the physical fitness area, the exercise room, being sized again for the equipment that they have, the number of personnel in the station at any given time, and making sure that they're able to maintain their physical fitness to a level that's appropriate for their work demands while they're on shift without having to go to a gym down the street or go outside because there's not enough space inside. That's kind of what drove the layout and the size of the spaces in this suite.
The exterior of the building, so there's three views of the proposed design. Consideration were given to the scale and adjacency to Town Hall was one of the key components that was discussed. Nobody's going to share the site, at least on this site discussion, and other materials that were kind of fit to the residential vernacular of the town area. We'll give a shorter review of Station 2. A lot of the concepts are the same, just in a smaller satellite station. So go into the next slide. Quick view, it's the existing site where Station 2 is located. Repurposed access to both sides, so it's still bi-directional bays. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, the functionality overall is very similar in terms of providing the single bunk spaces, decontamination facilities. Here there's 2 bays instead of 4, so appropriately scaled equipment and support storage facilities relative to the bay and operational areas. And likewise, all of the other areas in the building. The kitchen day dining is still a great room, but scaled down, again, proportionately to the number of staff that will be working out of Station 2. Go to the next slide. So the bay areas, again, decon still immediately adjacent for the hot zone separation and transitions. Next slide. Blue areas with the bunks, the lockers, and the single user showers and toilets. And the green, that's fine. The green areas show that kitchen day dining and a meeting space up to the front. Go ahead. Again, a blow up of the hot zone concept here. Same idea, just on a smaller scale. 2 bays, you see the red hot zone areas, opportunities for transition and decontamination before you're coming into the green space to help protect our firefighters. Go ahead. Same aesthetic used, same material palette, same kind of residential scale, keeping the roof lines low here on this palette. And that's it. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Katie. Okay, we are now to the public portion of the stakeholder meeting tonight. I believe Mr. Rose is going to help facilitate that. I think we're going to start from the floor first and then move to our virtual platform, which is the WebEx. This is the time we welcome all your input, whether there's a question, just a comment. Please get involved. We can't move this project forward without community involvement and engagement. That's the purpose of this first meeting, for us to listen. We will be available for questions at the end of the evening. I will tell you that this existing board, since coming together not too long ago, did our due diligence on preparation for this fire station project. We met with the previous board. We went through the Ohio Fire Chief's assessment of the facilities. We met with community residents. And to get this thing done, we need to do it collectively. We need to collaborate and work together on this and get it accomplished. So we all agree that we need it done. So with that, please participate. I will ask that you hold your comments to about 3 minutes. I'll let you know when that time is up politely, so we can have everybody participate. We'll start with the floor and then move to our virtual platform, which is WebEx. And thank you for all your comments and input. And we will be available after for questions. Thank you.
I'm going to have folks stay in their seats. I will bring you the wireless microphone. I will wipe it off in between each person. I have a container of disinfecting Clorox wipes. So we'll do this. So, Mr. Sanderson, you want to go first?
Yes. If I understood...
hang on, because I got to get everybody to hear you, because you got a virtual audience too, sir.
Okay. If I understood you correctly, the only way that this can proceed is with the bond issue. Is that correct or not? No, you had other options that were not desirable, but the way to go ahead was a bond issue, which we just voted down in November. So and with the architects explaining, I get the impression that we're going to have another bond issue with the same plan. Is that correct?
No.
Well, that's the way it came off.
No, that's not what we're doing. We gave an overview of where we've been. There were several options, I believe, that Mr. Rose put up there that were considerations. We've made no decisions. And the plan that we had summarized was the last existing plan that was done. We wanted the architect here to describe that to you so people understood it, for those that didn't see it at the fire department or on our website. But we have not made any consideration or determination or decision to go ahead with a new design before we engage the community. So the options there, those are just some of the options. We have made no decision to put another bond issue or anything of that nature up. That's not what we're here for tonight. We're here to get feedback from the community on how to work together to get this project accomplished. Okay, Mr. Massey, you want to?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Thank you, Andy. My name is Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive. I heard Chief Zabel mention about the third possible fire station. I was just wondering if in our initial planning we planned on 3 stations from the beginning. Would that enable us to reduce the size of that main station so that we'd have 3 stations of nominally 12,000 square feet, and perhaps that would reduce the overall cost of the project?
We're copying down these questions because we're going to get back to everybody. We want everybody to have time to make a comment or have a question. We can't, if we go back and forth all night, nobody is going to get their say. So we are taking notes. we're digesting everything, and we're going to get back to everybody, but we're not going to be able to do back and forth questions tonight. This is designed to get community feedback and information, questions, and when we come back to our second stakeholder meeting, we'll have some responses ready for those, okay?
It's being recorded, sir. Yeah. And transcribed? Not transcribed. Will it be transcribed? No. No? No, sir.
Hi, my name is Chris Andrews. I live at 10441 Prouty Road. Just some quick questions. I understand they won't be answered at this point, but I'm curious about administrative spaces. This proposed square footage for the administrative spaces in both Station 1 and Station 2, what the breakdown with those would be total. Would Station 2 also have administrative spaces? Another thing I'm interested in, I've seen the renderings the architects have put forward there. Is there any other firehouses in our county or neighboring counties that would be kind of what we're proposing here? I've seen a lot of the firehouses. Take, for example, down in Manaway. They have an awfully large firehouse down there. And a third quick question, if I may. For Station 2, I understand also that there is a house that's owned also by the city and the fire department. Is that the plan for Station 2 to demolish the house and take over that whole property there and build the Station 2 in both of those lots, the current lot and the lot next door where that house is? So those are my only questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll work my way this way. Here you go, sir. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi. Michael Fisher, 7780 Hermitage Road. Background, I'm 80 years old, and I've been in here for 45 years, I think, in Concord. I hear a lot about what we're doing for the firemen, but you guys are looking for $18 million, and I'm asking myself, what am I getting back? And most fire departments are judged on response time. And I understand from what I hear from everyone that we will not have any increased or lowered response time by building 2 new fire stations in the same location that they are. So how do you convince me to sign up for a forever levy and give you $18 million out of the community and tell me that you won't get to my house any sooner with a fire station that you're going to build compared to what we have right now? And another question I have is, you talk about exercise areas and workouts and this thing. What are the guys doing now? They doing push-ups in the hallways or what? They're all really good condition, and we have a great fire department. They do excellent response time and everything like that. But my question is, will it get better? I don't think it can get any better with stations being where they are and where my house is. You just have to drive from one place to the other. But you're asking for $18 million to do this.
I'm coming, ma'am. Excuse me. Thank you. There you go. Thank you.
Debbie Rush, 12460 Girdled Road. And this is a little bit to Mr. Fisher's point. I'm wondering if during the last project, if there was any kind of comprehensive capturing of the objections. There's a reason that levy did not pass, and I'm just wondering what's been done in the past or what the plan is in the future to figure out what those objections are and, hopefully be able to develop a communication program or redesign or whatever it is to address those objections so that we can get this project that is much needed accomplished.
I'm coming.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Esker. One of the things you guys have been talking about is Station 1 and Station 2 as all or none. You get them both, or if things fall apart, we don't get either. And since you've been talking about cash for Station 2, I was wondering if there was consideration to actually just do Station 2, because one of the things, we can talk about it a lot, but action will get people more excited. I think it maybe help get Station 1 through quicker if you get started on 2 and show what a great thing this is. So.
There you go, sir. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Will Rush, same address as my wife's. So referring back to what this gentleman was just asking about putting up one station and then the second one, it was my understanding that the money raised through bonds, levy, whatever it is that we were going to do to build the first one, that the JEDCO stuff would be able to fall on the back end of this whole thing to be able to pay for the second station. Is that correct? So then therefore, if you are going that route with the JEDCO and bringing it in from the back end, then I would say that it's really actually going to cost us a lot left. Now you look confused, but I heard that JEDCO.
On the JED funding?
Yeah, JED funding would be on the back side to help build the second station.
Yeah, you can. You want to respond?
For those of you who don't know me, Amy Dawson, fiscal officer. Originally, when we went out for the bond levy last year that failed, we would have had enough time, 3, 4, 5 years, to accumulate more JED dollars. Currently, we have $2.5 million, and what I...
Sorry, people
I know, sorry. So right this minute, we have $2.5 million in JED funding and capital projects funds that have not been committed to any other project. We're saving them. Don't know with what's going on with COVID if the JED dollars are going to keep coming in, but the original plan, as you were correct, Mr. Rush, was we were going to go out for the bond issue, start building Station 1, and while we were building that, continue to save funds for Station 2. So we could have the whole amount for Station 2 up front. I currently don't have the whole amount for Station 2. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
Cecilia Velovis, Ravenwood Lane, Concord Township. I love my community. I think probably we do need new fire stations, but I don't think that we citizens, especially we senior citizens on fixed incomes, can support any more increases in our taxes. So I don't understand why we can't go out, because I don't know how any of this funding is done and why you say one station we have cash for. Do we have a giant piggy bank for that station, or how did we get that cash, number one? And the other station that we can have to go out for funding for, can't municipal bonds be issued statewide? I mean, other communities issue municipal bonding, so I don't understand why that hasn't been looked at. So there's a lot of questions that we as senior citizens have, because we can't keep shelling out dollars for the schools and now for fire stations too. So please consider that when you're talking about financing, because Lord knows none of us know where it's coming from. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, I'm coming.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity. All of us appreciate the opportunity to finally sit and have a discussion. I think that we all agree we need new fire stations, but the question is how we pay for them. One of the things that I heard the architect say was, the satellite or sister stations, which Station 2 is considered that, and a possible Station 3 down the road, whether that's 10 years from now or whatever. But, I look at the whole plan as being fluid. It seemed like we were so focused last time on just this big Station 1 that we really needed to look at the whole picture and how we were going to plan that out and where everything could end up. I know we're talking about a ladder truck at some point, but are we building an extra bay at Station 1 to house a ladder truck, or is that something that would come with Station 3? I don't know, but those are questions out there. Right now, Painesville just got a $1.3 million ladder truck, and I know we chose not to participate in the cost of that, but obviously, I'm hoping that, with mutual aid, we're going to share in the benefit of some of that and valuable training. It's good to hear that you are have a connection with Auburn Career Center. I actually see them as part of an overall effort for a Station 3, which I know has been talked about in the past. I don't know what your percentage of EMS or EMS runs are, but I thought it was over 80%, maybe 85%. But, that also is something you have to look at if you're going to have it staffed for 2 runs at a time. And then you've got a second station that has that capability too. That's where the majority of the runs are. I know we have to be prepared for fire as well. I did look over the fire budget, the end of the year report or something, and it looked like, and I can talk to you further about this, but it looked like there was $1 million balance in that at the end of the year. So I need clarification on that at some point. We always have a shortage of parking. I'm just wondering about across from Town Hall, I see some land for sale, which we've used for parking. Is that something that we might want to consider buying? Because we do own other land, and that might be helpful in the future, because land is for sale once and then it's gone. And then, let's see here. I wanted to check with the architect. We talked about pre-engineered bays. And I'd like to hear more about the advantages, disadvantages of that, and also metal roofs. Some stations have done that. Given the topography of the land on the soccer field, I'm wondering, and I know we've talked about a little bit, Morgan and I, with the possibility of having a lower level. And if that's possible, is that where storage and exercise and some other things could go and shrink the footprint? So those are things that need to be considered. And I wondered also with the architect, when you talked about, the desks, and I just wondered, is that cross-reference with the age of stations, our newer stations with that data, what that looks like? Okay, because my understanding was, even though we have old facilities, we did buy some kind of exhaust system to help with that for our firefighters in the interim. And let's see. I think that's it as far as questions. Okay. My time's probably up anyway. There you go.
Thanks, Denise. Anyone else? Oh.
Hi, my name is Faith Andrews, same address as my husband. Sorry. The 3 options you said, the third one I'm definitely not a fan of. I don't want somebody else to own our fire stations and have us lease it. So I think that's, definitely should be off the table. Of the other 2 options, going out for bond financing without coming to the taxpayer, and then the one coming to the taxpayer, I guess my question is, why didn't you do number 1 first instead of trying to put a put a levy on. What is the advantages or differences? I mean, it's all public money anyway, because anything that comes into the township is public money. It belongs to the people. So the question I have is, can we get a breakdown of what the differences are? What is the advantage of one over the other? Again, other than not coming to the taxpayer. That's it.
I'm coming, sir. I'll cut through this way. Yes, sir.
Dick Terriaco, 6464 Coleridge, prior fire chief. In the past, when a community needed somebody to do something, like hazardous materials, paramedic service, those kinds of things, they looked at the fire service, say, okay, these guys are just sitting there, let's put them to work. My question is, the present pandemic that we're having, the COVID-19, is that going to have an effect on our design of the station? Is there anything that we might have to look at in the future that would add to the design? I don't know. That's the question.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go to the virtual world here and capture some questions and do my best to get them online. Okay, for those of you in the virtual world, I'm working my way to you. And what I'd like to do is there anybody that would like to ask a question? And I'll try to pick you off because how about anyone with the last name A through D?
I'm Linda Kangas. I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. I'm wondering what we have invested so far in and paid for in the first designs for the stations 1 and 2. What have our costs been up through 2019? Well, and two follow-ups to the same question. So we're working with LeMay and Erickson for the next phase, I'm assuming. And if so, do we have a contract with them already? And what can you tell us about the contract and how the finances might be laid out in that next contract?
Well, they don't answer one real question. How do you not answer people's questions?
Excuse me, can you please put your phone on mute if you're not answering the question or talking? Thank you.
Is there, I think that takes us through K. Is there anyone else who would like to offer comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Schick, and I live at 6255 Barris Drive. My comment is similar to a couple that have already been made, but I feel the need to share my view. During the levy, the previous levy, there was a rather organized grassroots campaign against the levy, and there was a number of there was literature that was put out that include a lot of financial information, facts and figures, etc. I don't know the accuracy of that information, but I would hope that as this process moves forward, and that those concerns that were addressed through that grassroots effort against the levy, that those concerns would be addressed, and so that that would not be a stumbling block as we move forward. And as an aside, I've been in Concord Township for 20 years. I've seen the facilities. I am very much in favor of this levy and will do whatever I can to help get it passed. That's my comment.
Is there anyone else on the virtual world that would like to offer comments? Going once. Going twice.
This is Sam, and I'd like to say that I very much support the fire department and all that you guys have done for the community. And I have seen the facilities, and I know that it is very much in need of being rebuilt. And I support the fire department, and I'm very excited for everyone to get, for not only the firefighters, but also the community to have a new fire department.
Hi. This is Vanessa Pesic.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Great. So I read through the previous architectural ways that you determined fire needs from the 2017 study, and then went through and answered a lot of questions, and then got to square footage and then the design. And in that program questionnaire response from November of 2018, it said that we're going to build 2 new stations, and they were all like, single rooms, and that you would add 2 additional firefighters at each station beyond the current staffing for disaster coverage, that you would probably add a ladder truck, that you would have a large centralized training center, and that there would be a need for a 3rd fire station. And it was all within a 10-year period. So as we talk about, do we bond this one and levy that one and pay for the other? I think that it's really critical that we look at the 10-year plan for what you might be doing and how we might be able to finance and all of this equipment and fire stations and stuff. And to Brian's point, who spoke earlier, the 2 versus the 3 stations, and looking at everything. So I think that's really important. And then you had asked about, what would people recommend? And we've spoken, my husband and I have spoken with different people, including an experienced architect who has designed fire stations. And he gave me some very specific language in his suggestion, and so if I can read it, states, everyone needs to understand that plans need to be as efficient as possible. Eliminate hallways, eliminate single-use rooms, multi-use, multi-purpose, and shared spaces with integrated storage at hand where needed. Plans need to be simple, simple, simple. Each corner or odd shape is to be worked out of the plan. Everything you build, you have to maintain for the life of the building. Eliminate every square foot you can. There is a continuing cost, not just the initial construction cost. The final plan and shape of the station should be as close to a square cube as possible. This is the most efficient shape to build, maintain, and heat and cool. This will not excite the architects because it will challenge them to think differently. Do not accept decoration, expensive materials, and unnecessary bumps in the exterior. Question everything and expect an explanation based on need. Everything must justify its expense. The best way to conserve resources is to not build what you don't need. And talks about eliminating continuous costs and other ways for energy improvement. So to me, that seems like very reasonable suggestion and a way, because it looked like at the beginning of this presentation, you presented us with, well, we have to have a bond levy for this building and then we'll pay for this other one, with the expectation that they were going to be both very expensive. But if you design them really well and you minimize the extra space and you build what you need, then you won't need as much from taxpayers, and you'll be able to afford more with the existing money. So I hope that you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on the WebEx call? I think there's 11 people on the call. Okay, I'll move back. Is there anyone else in the audience? Oh, I'm on my way. Heads or tails? There you go, sir.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Stephen Lee. I'm a volunteer with Affordable Concord Taxes. I just want to address the first gentleman, on the virtual questions. The information that we put out, absolutely. Is it perfect? No. Was it absolutely vetted? And again, we put nothing out that wasn't footnoted or vetted or confirmed or drawn from public records of the township itself. AffordableConcordTaxes.com, you can go and see all the information we did leading up to the defeat of issue 1 and since. If anybody sees something that's not correct, we've not heard anything from the trustees or the administration as such, let us know. We'll change it. We'll post it. We'll make a special alert on the website. But everything we did not publish a thing or say a thing that's not backed up. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hal Sekula, Auburn Ridge Drive, and I just wanted to say that I support the firemen. My cousin was a fireman, and some of the stories that he's told about walking into a blazing fire is pretty scary, and I don't think too many of us in here have experienced something like that. Therefore, I think that some of this, all this money, just millions and millions of dollars, I would vote for a raise for the guys. You know, that's my take on that. And another thing about, none of this is mentioned, when it gets to the point of building one or both of these, are we going to go to outside contractors outside of the area, or are we going to try to keep in Northeast Ohio? I would like to see that just for local jobs, and it's our money, so let's keep our people working. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yep, sure.
I apologize for my first jump up. When Andy announced additional taxes, that got my attention. And I want to start with identifying myself. I'm Bob Sanderson, 7796 Rock Dove Lane in Concord. And I think Stephen mentioned about the ACT group. They are not against firemen or fire stations. We all agree as Concord residents that we need a new fire station. The question is the increase in property taxes and just the financial end of it. That's what got my attention. So if I jumped up and got excited, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Thanks, Bob. Something else? Sure. Anybody else? You want to double back?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't introduce myself either. Denise Brewster, 7207 Alexander Road. I concur with Deb's husband on considering building Station 2. I said that a long time ago. It is the most needy. It's a smaller project, and in our current economic situation, we don't know what's going to happen. But I think it's definitely a safer road to travel there. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is when we look at 10 years, we're talking 10 years for equipment, 10 years for possibly a third station. What is the build out? I mean, we know how much land we have, so what is the build out and how much more are we going to need? And like I said, it isn't just looking at one station or the other, or if there's a third one down the road, we need to look at the whole thing and how this gets divvied up. Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I got to say something again about everyone talking about how much it's going to cost. They were showing the numbers up front. Concord Township mills, you were saying, was 10.9, something like that, mills. And this project was 0.83, so it's less than 10% of what Concord costs everyone as it is. The other thing, too, when you look at the numbers of what that meant, is it came out to $30 per 100,000 value of your house. And yet all of the tax we're paying now is around $2,000 for 100,000 value. So how can anyone even think about this money is anything big when you're talking about a $30 increase to $2,000? That's not even what you're paying that's not even what you're paying for a night out in the town once a year, So
It's like 100. Yeah.
Per 100, this was per 100,000 value of your house.
So you're going to pay $100.
So a $500,000 value house, say in a big area of town, is about 150. Yeah, per 100,000.
But that's only one.
But you're
We
paying.
get it from the schools, we get it from the county, we get it from here, we get it from there, and when you add it all up, it gets to be a big number.
You got to do it what?
It's meaningless.
Thanks, sir.
Hi, Chris Galloway, 6440 Auburn Road. I could speak to just about every question here tonight, but I'll let the trustees handle that. I would just comment on a couple things. One, just for everybody to be clear, there was questions about whether we should be looking at a bond, and the levy was designed to be able to back up the financing of the bond. So the township was going to pursue bonding to pay for Station 1. And at the completion of Station 1, Station 2 would have been constructed with JED revenue dollars. So we would have gotten 2 stations, but we would have only been going out on a bond and therefore the levy to build one of the stations. So in essence, you would have gotten 2 for the price of 1. Regarding Station 3, there is, there's the 10-year that was mentioned. A lot of that was projection, and I think it's important to consider that the concepts about Station 3, we believe that the community eventually will need a Station 3. But that's something that the community will need when we reach a certain threshold in terms of calls and level of development, especially within the commercial corridor. So that may be 25 years. So it's not something that you can wrap up into this plan because, as we all know, this development is slow. There's economic ebb and flow. For example, it took us 7 years to bring Drug Mart to Concord. So to put it in sort of glacial terms, you can't say, well, in 10 years we're going to need Station 3. I could have said that to you 10 years ago, and we still don't need Station 3. So I think it's important that sort of divorce that from these 2 stations and the need in terms of those 2 buildings and the nature of the condition of those buildings and the facilities that the men and women have to work in. I did sort of just to piggyback off of what you were saying, I got the sense from the campaign last year that there were a lot of people in the community that thought that the ask from Concord was a really big ask. To put it in perspective, in the last 6 or so years, the school district has increased taxes about 15 mils, okay? Concord was asking for 0.83. So I'm trying to put that in perspective because I heard a lot of people saying it's all so much, it's all so much. Of course, I liken that, of course, to the analogy I give is, you're right, if you're angry at the schools for raising taxes to build the buildings, I mean, that's fine. You can be upset about it and work in those regards. But I don't think it's fair to tar and feather the fire department based on your anger over a park levy, a Lakeland levy, Riverside levy. This was an extremely small levy. A $200,000 house would have been somewhere in that $30 range, maybe only in the mid-20s a year at 0.83. And based on the financing numbers that Amy had put together, it would have taken the township probably 10 to 12 years to pay that off. So I know there was a reference earlier about a levy in perpetuity. That's not how it would have worked because when the bond was paid, the levy would have gone away. So to me, it's important to kind of put things in perspective. And I felt like with some of the rhetoric flying around last fall that it was the equivalent of your 17-year-old son wrecked the car and your solution was to ground your 12-year-old daughter. So you're unhappy with the school levies that have raised your taxes a great deal, so your solution is to punish the fire department. I don't think that's, I'm not wrong. I mean, I think that's the rhetoric. Okay, well, that's fine. This is my opinion. This is the community. The community, I believe, is deserving of new fire stations, and I do not believe a $30 a year levy is asking too much.
Where's the 3 minutes? I gave off the floor.
He could talk about everything. I gave a lot of people over 3 minutes.
Several people. Okay, he's a resident. Listen, sir, we gave a lot of people over 3 minutes. Some people spoke twice. Who else would like to speak? We're gonna do this orderly and respectful.
You bet.
I'm coming, sir.
Just asking a curiosity, how many people in this room have ever had to use the fire department or the EMS? Okay, so I think you've answered your question about what we need to do to help the fire department and get it. Looks like about 80-85%. I've had to use them twice for myself, once or twice for my son and whatnot. When you dial that 911 and you get an ambulance and a fire truck and a bunch of guys that have a lot of compassionate care about what they're doing for us as patients and people that live in the community, I think it's the least that we can do. Is you can't expect these guys to go out and do an outstanding job if you don't give them the equipment to do the job. And that's what we need to do, is we need to support them, what they're doing, back them, get them that money so we can get these stations built. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. We need to support the fire departments.
Oh, I see you, ma'am. Coming.
Thank you for the opportunity this evening. I have a hard time with people assuming that we aren't supporting the firefighters. We are supporting them. I have lived in Concord for 53 years. I am all about supporting them, but it has to be reasonable. Just like when I buy things, it has to be reasonable within my budget, what I can afford. I don't have kids, but we have always supported the schools. So to say that I'm mad at the schools, so I'm gonna, punish the firefighters, That is very, very wrong. What I want is a reasonable plan for all the stations for moving forward. And starting with when this was voted down, did we look at a firm that's close to us? I agree with the question. What are we paying for in the contract? Are we flying people in for meetings like this when we could be saving the money and using it towards our fire departments? So don't tell me it's only $30, and don't tell me it's not going to cost that much. And what's $100 on a night out? I don't spend $100 on a night out. Most of the time, I don't spend $30 on a night out because we save and we stay home and we live responsibly. So nobody is doubting that we need fire stations, but it has to be done within a budget. And I want to retire here. I bought the home I grew up in for a reason, but I am getting taxed out of here, and it's ridiculous. I'm paying for this. I'm not punishing anybody, but just don't tell me that, we just have to do it because the firefighters deserve it. Yes, they do. I work at the hospital. I know what they do, but I don't have a workout room. I have to work out at home. I go to work. I do my job. This has to be done responsibly. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, here you go, Mr. Dondorf.
Okay, thank you. A lot of good input. I will tell you, I heard somebody say, why aren't we answering any questions? We wanted to make sure everybody had the opportunity to participate tonight because I believe it's very important. So with that, I will answer a few questions that come to mind, and I think each trustee is going to answer a few questions as we close here tonight, and we will be available after for more questions. There was some discussion initially about a continuous levy. I don't think that was ever proposed on the first when the levy was proposed. It wasn't going to be a continuous levy. There was some question about the. You can't do a continuous levy on a bond. Right. Mr. Sanderson, I think he left. But in regards to the. Oh, okay. There you are. I think the options that Andy put up there was just that, options that would be considered. We're not proposing that we're going to request a bond levy at all. This is the initial stages of us trying to get input from the community and see how we're going to move this thing forward. So it was not any type of decision made on that as far as a bond levy goes. There was a lot of good feedback tonight. I just want to remind everybody this is the first in a series of meetings that we're going to have. It's important that, everybody's got difference of opinion. Some opinions are different. We may not all agree, but we need to come together and work together. We all agree that this fire station project needs to move forward, and we need to get it done. So I thank everybody for coming here tonight. We will be available for questions. And we will be setting a date for some continual meetings as far as these stakeholder meetings. So I thank everybody for their participation, and I'm going to pass it off to Mr. McIntosh and then Mrs. Lucci.
Thank you, Carl. Again, I want to reiterate how happy I am to see people here and the opportunity to dialogue about this. So thank you for coming tonight, and again, an important project. With respect to the process, and I know we got asked early on about what our commitment is if we're going to put a levy on, and again, as Mr. Dondorfer said, I think these, as we look at it, it's, I'm a business guy, so you look at it, so last year's template is an option. We can go to other things. We could do Fire Station 2 first. We could do the bonds. We could, a lot of different things. I mean, the other thing, too, that we have talked about is those are the vehicles to fund the project, but that doesn't necessarily mean, funding is key to this. We've made that clear that our current operations aren't necessarily going to support all of this. So if the funding's not there, then we have decisions to make. So I think that's the other part of it. Nobody wants to sit here and say that we would cut, but we have the ability to run budgets. We have the ability to work within that. And if that's what we end up with, we build the stations that we can with what we have. So nobody's suggesting that Concord's incapable of that process. I think we held up those original examples with, hey, for those that don't know, this is where we are, this is where we've gotten to, and it's how we can intelligently converse about the project and what it might look like and the variables that are there. So take that for what it is, as just a here's where we are. This group of trustees came into office at the start of the year and needed to pick this up. So we needed to get into this. With respect to, somebody talked about comparables, I've made myself available and traveled with Administrator Rose, Chief Sabo, and Deputy Chief Terriaco to visit a number of stations, about 4 or 5, walked around, did some more research. I had some help with Ms. Brewster, sent me some comparables to look at online, read some notes about that. Comparing Concord's potential projects to other stations is complicated, to say the least, because you have a lot of different variables going into it. For instance, one of the headwinds we have here in Concord with respect to the project to put Station 1 anywhere around Town Hall campus, if you're talking about the soccer field or you're talking about the parking lot on Town Hall, is the fact that earthwork is expensive. We have to build an expensive basement on the soccer field, and we have a lot of concrete to pour to connect 608 and Ravenna Road, if that's the route we end up going. You can look at other stations, and if you're not asking questions about fees or what was their land acquisition, did the township or the entity own the land beforehand? Well, they built it for this. There's a lot of different things in there. I know the earthwork on Site 1 that was proposed, the estimate was $1 million. It's $1 million just to do the groundwork and to put the concrete there, just that one bit. When you start to look at other fire stations and you see what the structure costs, you find out that that project is much more in line with other projects out in different communities. Having toured other facilities, I see things like design considerations where I see communities where firefighters sat down and did a design, and township government people like myself came in and said, we're going to do something different. I visited a township or fire department where certain apparatuses or things were going to be put in, and then the trustees of that township cut the budget and they're not hooked up. Or they came in and override designs. I don't think this board wants to just kind of swoop in and make this a project, and we say so. We want to work with the fire department. We want to work with experts in that field. As I understand it, Chief Sabo was the lead in picking LeMay Erickson and their leaders in their field, and so that's why they were selected. This board didn't select LeMay Erickson. We're working with them. I'm of the benefit that you've spent dollars, you've gone forward. Why would you backtrack? Why would we go back to the start of a process to entertain new architects, waste time, waste money? Costs go up. Okay, we talked with the fire department that was constructed. Same thing as we're doing or wanting to do in Concord is to build a station and then have a second one built. West side of Cleveland. They finished their station last summer, and they were going to work on the second station, and they had seen their project of that second station come in about 7% higher than, the cost had escalated. While they built one, the cost of construction had gotten way more expensive. Okay, so their process went along, and that was changing. So we looked at that variable and said we don't really want to waste time on letting construction costs rise, let things get out of control. So that's just a little bit of a scope of where we are. We have decisions to make. We have to figure out, do we stick with the designs? Do we go with new designs? That's the point of this process. I think a few people spoke about how this is going to go and how are you going to communicate and facts and all of that. Yes, all those things are true. People said things. Was everything said last fall accurate? I'm not going to go back and do that, but our interest in having these engagements with you and the community is to have a upfront and truthful dialogue about things now, have it out in the open, to not war it out on social media, but for the trustees to be available. That's why we're here tonight. That's why we're committed to a process to do more. And I think as far as the 10-year thing, I think it was sort of addressed when you look at it right now. I also view the demands of a third station largely predicated on the development of that corridor section of the township. When you look at our residential numbers, you're probably seeing things getting closer to the end of our growth as opposed to we've seen a tremendous amount of growth the last decade. We've seen that go on. We've seen the fire service outgrow these facilities, and just from what I've seen now, I see the facilities as underutilized, and I see these facilities meeting the demand I see the value of the project into putting something that's going to last. I think Ms. Lucci mentioned at the start about the pride of a community and having a building that's going to look presentable and be functional for a number of years. I've seen facilities that they cut corners, and I guarantee you they're going to be spending a lot of money fixing those facilities down the road. Concord doesn't want to do that. So speaking to that, and I think I do want to express a little bit of conversation about the tax situation. I have lived in my present home for the last 9 years, and I think since I've gone into that house, I've seen my tax bill nearly double. So I understand, and we're talking thousands of dollars, okay? And I took a look at the project. Now, unfortunately, when the former board put the issue on the ballot, their cost estimate was unknown, so they guessed high. And interest rates were at a certain point, and when you do bonds, you have to do conservative up so that the voters are never hit with high. Well, right after they voted to put that on the ballot, the interest rate dropped, and as we know, it's continued to drop. 2 weeks after that, we found out the engineer's estimate came in a substantial chunk less. So had everything come in at full tilt last year, I know on my house, taxable value, just a little over $100,000. That's not the assessed value, that's the taxable base value. I have a pretty average to maybe slightly above average house in Concord. That was going to cost me about $35 a year in taxes. I did a little research, called around with what we know about the project cost today and where interest rates are today, and we all know where they've fallen. They've been steadily falling, and then COVID came, and they're back in the tank again. This would cost me around $25 a year. So to be fair, to put it in perspective of we are now, I'm not saying if people have problems, I understand that, and if that's something, I'm not suggesting it, but I think it's a reasonable conversation when we throw around big dollar numbers about the project and what it costs, and then we relate it to what we pay. I just want that fact to be clear, that what we're talking about as far as that goes. So I want to, again, thank everyone for coming. We are all available. Emails and phone numbers are on the website, and we'll be around here. I'm always willing to meet with people and have running conversation.
Are you telling me that we're going to pay off $18 million at $25 a household?
I don't know where you're getting. I don't know where you're getting the $18 million. That's.
You just said $25.
Yeah, I said that's what the tax levy would cost me.
Last year, the fire station numbers were $18.5 million. That was the number.
I don't recall Concord Township putting that number out. So, no, I don't think, well, Concord didn't put that number out.
What was it? $8 million.
Not $18 million.
Yeah.
And
I did. There's speaking of. I know we kind of want to keep this, but there's something else I just recalled. Somebody did talk about. I have talked with builders. There are local people that want to put this to bid and realize we have estimates. It's going to go out to bid and it's going to come in. The estimates are estimates, so we don't even know where this thing is going to settle out. So if we took a look at if we said, hey, it's going to cost every penny of what the estimate is, we're down to that at this point. There may be additional shrinkage in that, and we have had loose conversations about what are things we can do to trim cost. We haven't really acted on them because we're dialoguing now with you guys to get a temperature and to hear what people have to say. So again, we're here trying to listen and trying to communicate and be part of that and be factual about what's going on out there.
Okay, I was wrong on my number. I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a few things to close up. First of all, how ironic that we got our tax bill yesterday. It was like the perfect timing. So in any event, I did just want to mention a few things. We are getting a little slightly older population. So we have to take care of our seniors. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. And, a lot of our seniors need EMS services, and so that's something to consider. Another thing is, it's very difficult to hire new firefighters, from what I understand, especially if we don't have the facilities that they, number one, have to work in, and number two, have to live in. This is not just work 9 to 5. They live there 3 days in a row or whatever. So that's another consideration. And my only concern with trimming costs, which again, responsibility, we understand that. But if we want something to last 50 to 75 years, I don't want to use some cheap material that we're going to end up having to replace or perform maintenance on. So other concerns as well. Just wanted to add that. And anything else?
I think that's it for this evening. Looks like we're right on time. It's about 8:45. I would like to thank Quail Hollow again for giving us the space to meet with everybody. They were very gracious. And I would like to thank all of you that took time out of your busy schedules with everything going on in the world today to contribute and be a part of this collaboration with the community and give us input on our fire stations. So thank you all very much, and we will reach out again here in the near future to meet again. Thank you. We'll be available if you have any questions.